Mr. Marlow, thank you so much for meeting with us today. We understand that you have an extensive background in law. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. I attended Stuyvesant High School in Manhattan, and then I graduated and went to St. Lawrence University, and I graduated from there with a BA degree, and I went on to St. John's Law School, graduated there in 1966, and I became a prosecutor in the Queen's DA's office. I did that for about 4.5 years. And then the district attorney of Dutchess County saw my resume and he hired me to come up there and be a prosecutor in Dutchess County. And I did that for 4 years. I tried a lot of cases, and then I became a law clerk to the district attorney in Dutchess County, and he became a judge. So I became his law clerk, and enabled me, because it was only a part-time job then, to start my own law practice. And I did that until 1983. In the meantime, I was elected Town of Poughkeepsie judge in 1980, and I did that for 4 years. And then I ran for family court, and as I mentioned to you earlier, that took an awful lot of patience to be a judge in family court. And so I tell some of the litigants sometimes when they get all hyper about their case that when my father passed away, I told them a story about my children's father, meaning their grandfather, and I told them how much patience he had, and he was very soft-spoken. And so when I saw the tombstones in the cemetery and noticed that all they said was beloved brother, husband, uncle, whatever, I just felt it wasn't enough to describe my father. So I said, what is your favorite trait about your grandpa? And they said, his patience. And so we put on the gravestone, a dedicated lawyer and a very patient man. So anyway, as I told you, I became a town judge, became a family court judge, then I got elected county court judge where I tried. I was very proud of the fact that I tried one of the first death penalty cases under a new statute that started in 1995. And the trial lasted about 3 or 4 months. And the defendant was convicted, but the jury wasn't able to give him the death penalty because they weren't unanimous. So I piled up, because he did something horrible. He killed his ex-wife all at once. He killed his ex-wife, her daughter, 21 years old, and the daughter's 7-year-old son he shot in the face. And so I gave him 63 years to life. And he actually committed suicide after a number of years in prison. So that was a really exciting and challenging time for me. And then later on I became a Supreme Court judge, and I also then, Governor Pataki was elected, and a few years later he appointed me to the appellate court in Manhattan, and I served there for 7 years. And my wife said to me one day when we were sitting in our den, she said, "When are you coming home?" I said, "What are you talking about? I didn't know you minded." She said, "Well, I didn't mind until now." She said, "But I'm kind of tired of spending 3 or 4 nights home alone." So I said, "I promise you'll be back in a year." And I came back, and I stayed on the bench in Poughkeepsie for a year. And then I retired, and when I retired, the chief judge asked me if I wanted to stay on as head of the Judicial Ethics Committee. We have 27 judges on the committee. We get letters from judges asking about ethics advice. We get about 200 letters a year. We write opinions. We've written about 5,000 opinions since 1987. And we get approximately 1,000 phone calls a year from all of the 3,600 judges in New York State asking ethics questions. And so I usually, I get at least 1 or 2 phone calls a day, and I answer their questions.
So you're still active in law?
Yeah,
at
but
this point?
part-time and pro bono. I don't get paid for it. And then I also went back to my old law firm, and I do an occasional mediation or arbitration. And
And you're doing one right now, I understand.
Yeah, I'm doing one right now. Well, I'll be doing it in May. I'll be finishing it in May when I come back.
So do you just winter in Florida?
Yes.
Or you do?
Yeah.
And when did you start doing that?
3 years ago. Well, actually, I was in Naples for 6 winters because I had a childhood friend. We grew up in a 2-family house, and she moved in when she was 4 and I was 6. And we became like brother and sister for 70-odd years. And she's still over in Naples. As a matter of fact, she and her husband are going to stay with us next weekend.
Can you tell me something about your family?
Sure. We have 3 biological children. One is a lawyer, 2 are lawyers, a girl and a boy, and one was a teacher. And my sister passed away in 1975. She had 2 sons. One was 11 at the time, the other one was 16. I was very close with them when they were growing up, and their father was in the wind. And so, we took them in. My wife actually, I didn't want to ask her to do that, but she volunteered before I even said anything. And we finished raising them, and they're both doctors now. And in fact, one of them is moving his practice down here from Connecticut. He's joining David Goldman, who's an ophthalmologist in Palm Beach Gardens, and he'll be down in October. And he has 3 kids. We have 16 grandchildren, 8 girls, 8 boys, and we've been having a wonderful life with them. I just want to say one more thing. When the boys that we took in became adults, they were both doctors by that point, they were both married, they had kids, and they decided they wanted us to adopt them officially. So we had an adoption party. We invited about 75 friends and relatives, and all the grandchildren were there. And so, the younger nephew prepared an invitation to send out. And the invitation had a picture of him and his older brother as babies, with their height and weight currently underneath the picture. It was such a funny thing.
Yeah.
But my younger nephew, he has a great sense of humor, and we really enjoy being around both of them.
What is it that made you choose Palm Isles?
Well, the most important reason why we chose Palm Isles was not only that it's a very nice place and it has a lot to do here. My wife's brother bought a place about 6 months or a year before we did. And we lived about 2.5 hours away from each other. And we didn't see each other a lot because I was so busy with what I was doing. We had 5 kids. I mean, there was just an awful lot, and so did he. So when he moved here during the winter only, he only comes down in the winter, she said to me one day, you know, I didn't see my brother a lot all these years. I really would like to move to the East Coast, and I'd like to find a place near him. We're getting old, time is running out. So I was not going to oppose that because I lost my sister. And I wanted her to have the pleasure of being her brother. And what I mean by that is, I met Marcy when she was 15 and I was 17. And we've been married 54 years. And I can honestly say to you, when they became young adults, they're the only two in the family, right? And there wasn't one occasion when they either he or she raised their voice to each other. They get along absolutely beautifully, and I wasn't going to interfere with that.
Very lucky people.
So
That's good.
What activities here at Palm Isles do you particularly like?
well, what I really like is that I can do whatever I please when I please. I mean, that's the best part, because my life was so structured during my career. It was very difficult to make plans to do anything. But we have some grandchildren coming down every now and then. We'd love to have dinner out. I go to the gym almost, not every single day, but I alternate days. I use the treadmill in the gym, and then when I'm in my condo, I have weights and stuff, and I do exercise in the condo on the days in between. And, we love to go shopping. We still are doing stuff in our condo that we like to do. And, it's very pleasant, very easy.
Thank you so much for being part of our Palm Isles video presentation.
You're welcome. It was
Thank
my
you,
pleasure.
George.